Let's make sure that I set up Restream correctly. And we're good. I'm on a little bit of a streak, Nolan. Knock on wood. Now I've just jinxed
Yeah?
myself to screw something up.
That's too bad. It's a good run.
It was fun while it lasted. Goodness gracious. Yeah, I've got the heavy load. I swapped with Stratford, so I'll be doing Sunday night, the early bird for Monday's podcast or the Monday slate. So I have the live before lock NBA, NFL, and then that all at night, and then I turn around and do two more on Monday here. But then I get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off. So there we are. I'm going to send this tweet out now that I know we've got a stable connection. We'll get that little link dropped in chat. But we've got a new sponsor for Live Before Lock. So everybody, we've got Superdraft now. Now they're at superdraft.io. It's a legitimate... I actually worked for a company that ran the .whatevers in several other countries, including... Canada, Costa Rica, Australia, Colombia, I want to forget a few others. So just because it's not .com, .biz, .net, or .edu doesn't mean it's not accurate anymore. There are just so many people now on the internet that you've got different things at the end. But this is superdraft.io. So we'll talk about them shortly. But we've got the Seattle Seahawks heading down here to San Francisco. They are taking on the 49ers. They're almost touchdown underdogs, Nolan.
I'm representing here. I got my old school Steve Young jersey on.
Do you really? Oh, I have...
Little 1995 colors.
All right, well, I got to find my prop. If I remember where it is, it'll be funny. In any event, we've got... I got spinach salad for dinner. So... little in my teeth there. Damn it, now I'm going to be sad I don't have this, especially with you on. Anyway, we've got a great game here. Good defense. That's going to be a little bit of a problem here, and the good defense is no longer the Legion of Boom. Seattle, not so tough on defense anymore.
I like it.
Both teams like to run the ball, so a risk we have is more running, less throwing. That means less plays because the clock doesn't stop, because there are not incompletions. So we've got Jimmy Garoppolo projecting very close to Russell Wilson, but the problem, Nolan, he has half his games of under like 230 yards. That's not good.
Yeah, not great. I don't know. I'm not super high on him tonight. I mean, it's really this. We were talking a little bit before going on air here. This is a tough game to figure out. I think like a lot of these Niner games are just so hard for showdown slates because you've got like so many weird wide receivers. Now we don't have Kittle in the mix. There is some clarity at running back, fortunately, as it looks like this is pretty much a two-headed committee. At wide receiver, things are maybe a little bit less murky than they have been, but I mean, these quarterbacks are always good plays in util spots, right? Because they just have such high floors, and their chances of being one of the top 2 to 6 plays are so high, and we see them more often than not. So, I mean, that's where I'm going tonight. I'll probably have some of him in the captain. We do see Jimmy G with a 17. Oh, sorry. I will not be having Jimmy G in the captain. I'll be altering my lineups as we go here. We got about a 9% chance of him being top play, and he's getting about 17% captain ownership. So a little bit of a discrepancy there, but I got no problem slotting him in the util spot where there's an equally big discrepancy the other way.
All right, so good news and bad news. For those of you that are playing NBA, we just got news of a late scratch. That would be Brandon Ingram. I have him on 60% of my lineup, so I'm going to be doing a little tweaking here. But not to fear. I've got everything set up for my crunch, my rules, and everything is built. But I was looking. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, Nolan. Let me try to hold it up in front of the camera. Oh, you can't see it unless you look on the stream. It's Steve Largent catching a touchdown wearing his very early 80s helmet and barely any shoulder pads, and it's actually autographed.
Oh wow, it's beautiful. I'm waiting for it on the YouTube feed here.
Yeah, autographed to me.
Larger, man. Back when the Seahawks used to be garbage, and he was the only good player.
Oh,
for that 25-year period.
Yeah, there was some rough years, but don't have to worry about that anymore. So you want to kind of go game by game. If you throw some questions my way, I'm gonna do a little late swappage here. But first off, I'm gonna run my crunches for so we can talk about those as well on DraftKings here for the single game slate, and then we'll mention a little bit more about Super Draft. So
Yeah,
we got a bunch of moving parts, but we got it all. We've done these things before.
yeah. Someone in chat here, Andres Alvarez says Dwelly will be over owned. Just going through some chat, and I think our projections agree with that so far. We have Dwelly with about a 6% chance of being one of the top 2 to 6 plays, and he's getting about 20% ownership in the util spot. He did run a lot of routes. He has been running a lot of routes, but of course the 49ers have activated Brent Selleck. I always get them mixed up. Garrett Selleck. Brother of Brent Selleck?
Yes, he is I believe the younger brother.
Garrett Selleck. So I don't know if that will cut into his role a little bit. I'm guessing yes. Garrett Selleck did have a few nice games there, a few nice pass catching games a couple years back. So it's not like they just use him predominantly as a blocking tight end or anything. We could see Dwelly come have his snap count halved or something like that. So I'm right there with you, kind of leaning towards the fade there too.
Yeah, now with me, he's in my main lineup because I needed some salary savings. So as I've talked about on most of these shows, I run half my in play cash is in 3-man's head to heads, and then 1 or 2 of the like a triple up or 1 or 2 of the tournaments, and then I run the other half in lower dollar or lower entry fee contests, and I build between 50 and 100 lineups. So he's on half my cash in play, but he's really not coming in for me on my crunches, and I'm fine with that. It was a designed play for me to have him on my other lineups just because I needed the salary relief.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Let me see here.
What are you doing with Josh Gordon tonight? Looks like he's playing. Looks like he's in. I'm guessing he's going to be on a snap count, though. Jaron Brown is inactive.
The Jaron Brown inactive makes it a little more helpful, but the Seahawks are going to want to run the ball if they can as well. But what I like about Gordon is that should help take some of the pressure off of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I mean, everybody's going to be focused on Tyler Lockett, but since they lost their tight end, Will Dissly, right after they traded away Nick Vannett to the Steelers at the trade deadline, they're kind of hurting for another receiver that anybody has to be sort of nervous about, because surprisingly, even though he can catch the ball and he's at least adequate at catching the ball, Chris Carson doesn't tend to get a lot of targets, at least not this year. So CJ Prosise not active as well. So my guess is we're still probably going to see around 30 passes from Russell Wilson. Most of them will go to Lockett, to Metcalf, and then I'm blanking on their new backup tight, or the new, I say backup tight end, the next man up. But Hollister. But he had 2 touchdowns last week. Those were the first 2 of his career.
Yeah. So. He's still it looks like he's taken over the number 1 tight end duties in this offense, so I don't really have a problem going there. He ran the most routes out of all the tight ends last week, ran the 3rd most routes on the entire team, behind Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I kind of like that call. 60 offensive snaps, and getting targeted a fair amount. Fred Warner's been pretty good in coverage as well, though, so I'm not like super excited about the play, but definitely don't hate it.
Yeah, it looks like I'm going to end up with about 10% Josh Gordon without tweaking anything. You mentioned Alex had a tweet. Which was the guy? Was it Kendrick Bourne that he was interested in?
No, it's Marquise Goodwin, who's active for the first time in 3 weeks, and he is not super cheap. His last game was Week 7 at Washington. Of course, he is. I'm sure most of our listeners or viewers know that he is a burner and can break one off at any time. And so I do kind of like him as a play, considering I think most people were just assuming that he would be inactive again. So, you're probably looking at really reduced ownership there. And of course, he's the perfect kind of GPP GPP play, because all you really need is one big catch and for him to get behind the defense once. So high risk, high reward, low floor or non-existent floor, low ownership play for your chalkier lineups. Don't hate that call at all.
Yeah, I'm actually just looking to see. I don't think I'm going to get him in any lineups unless I do a little manual intervention here. Because I don't have
Yeah,
him projected.
you're probably gonna have to manually put him in. I don't think he's projected for very much. So
Yeah, so let's give him, let's see, we'll give him 6. It's the same as Josh Gordon. Now let's go look at his game logs. Yeah, we're going to give him 6. We'll see what happens if I do that. We'll get a few percent because it just takes one lineup to break free. And that's something I've been doing a fair amount of these boosters and winner take alls for hockey. And I've learned, we have amazing hockey projections for those of you that I have not dipped behind the paywall to check that out. They were actually free today, but they have been phenomenal. But it just takes one lineup to break free and do well for you on a variant sport. This is a variant sport. Football is, of course. So let's see. So I'm going to get 14% of him if I have him at 6. Kendrick Bourne went down a little bit. I think Bourne's still returning kickoffs, assuming, they're not touchbacks, which kickoffs seemingly are touchbacks all the time now. Got a heavy dose there of Sanders. I'm getting a little more Chase McLaughlin than I am Jason Myers. Part of that's due to our projection. Robbie Gould is out, so Chase McLaughlin has played just 4 or 5 NBA games. If I was manually choosing this, I would probably lean towards Myers, who's more of a veteran, but there we are. Looks like 20% of Dwelly, 1% Hollister, Lockett 45, Sanders 45, Carson 34, Coleman and Breida are 39 and 40. These are just my field players. And then Wilson and Garoppolo are 50-50. I've set everybody else at about 10%. As my captain spot, just to give myself some differentiation. And it's the main guys that we would expect. Wilson, Sanders, Garoppolo, Lockett, Carson, Coleman, and Breida are all coming in at 10%.
Yeah. Question in chat here says, Osmo recommending Goodwin. I think he was just recommending him on Twitter as a kind of a one-off like flyer, just sort of someone that people aren't going to be heavily owning tonight.
Right. And if it would take me probably 7 to 10 hand-built lineups before I'd put him in. Just because if we look at as we kind of mentioned at the top, Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners, they run the ball even more than the Seahawks, and that's what they want to do. All their backs are healthy. If they can avoid throwing, they're going to. So so half the games thus far, they've had less than 250 yards passing. How much passing can go around? Now, a lot is going to open up because George Kittle's not there, but I figure Emmanuel Sanders is going to be option 1, probably option 2, and option 3 at the rate he's going, and he's only been with the team for a few weeks. But the other guys, I mean, Dante Pettis, he had what bit of a darling at the end of last season. Then he had one other good game. That was when he played Seattle in Seattle. Laid down a monster. He went to college there, so we call that hey, remember me games. But that is neither here nor there, and he's not done very well prior to that or since that. So just be very, very careful. With the Niners, I don't trust any of them. Kittle's the only person I trust because he's their wide receiver 1, and he's not in. So from that point, with 2 healthy running backs, Jeff Wilson Jr. is inactive tonight. They're going to lean on Coleman and Breida would be my guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that last week. It was Coleman and Breida basically splitting the touches now. There's a little bit less of a mystery with this 49ers backfield. It's essentially a 2-back committee. Who knows which one will be the lead back? I'm guessing Tevin Coleman will get the majority, but you could see Breida becoming the higher scoring of the 2 as well. There's no real huge difference. Breida had 15 carries last game as well. So, and then Coleman was the week before that, I think. So, and one really interesting, I think, angle to this game as well is just how bad Seattle's pass rush has been this season. Second worst pass rush in the NFL. The 49ers get both of their starting tackles. They're back. Joe Staley's back. Mike McGlinchey's back. That's going to help things out. That's going to allow San Francisco, I think, probably to dictate at will what they want to do, because if Seattle can't run the ball and they have the second best run blocking unit in the NFL behind Kyle Shanahan's offensive zone scheme, they could be able to dictate pretty well what they're going to do. And it's really going to come down to a question of whether or not Seattle is able to stop one of those 2 things.
Oh, yeah. I'm a little annoyed with this whole Brandon Ingram thing that I got to fix here. So, again, if you're just tuning in, Brandon Ingram is out. That game starts in 15 minutes. He has a sore knee. I know this is an NFL show, but a lot of people just make the jump from
Yeah, absolutely.
NFL or
Hopefully, you got him
from.
in your util spots, and you can just go straight down to Drew Holiday.
Unfortunately, I was game stacking this game, and he was my number one recommended play in
Well,
my
that sounds
article.
like a pretty good strategy tonight, from what I saw. So,
Yes, so we will see here. All right, but now this is a good thing about the old swaptimizer, the old late swap here on Fantasy Cruncher. So, as just a fun thing, and this is something you can do on NFL Sunday. I've just isolated the lineups I want. You don't have to do it that way, but I'm not as nimble with Fantasy Cruncher, and I'm trying to talk for this game. So fortunately, I've already done my NFL lineups. But what I'm doing here is, and for those of you that are new to this, you have the ability to download your most current CSV from whichever site you're playing on. In this case, DraftKings. You then upload it into the late swaptimizer option, but you have to do a few other things. First thing you got to do is get rid of all the players and the teams the games that have already started, because you don't want them coming into your player pools. And then you've got to remember what's going on with your um, other rules that you have set. So unfortunately, this is going to be a harder one for me because he's on a ton of my lineups. But I've gone in and relaxed the rules that I had set, and then I'm gonna see here see what happens here. But this is something that's quite helpful from that standpoint. And then I'm gonna hit upload. I'm gonna hit swaptimize, and then I'm probably gonna be mad about what happens. But if you're not used to doing this and you have not made a few steps like relaxing your rules, increasing the individual percentage caps for your players, etc., it may not do all the replacing that you're hoping it's going to do, and that can cause a lot of downstream ramifications from that standpoint. But it looks, in theory, like I was successful, so I am just going to let that ride, and I am going to upload my lineups, and then we're just going to go with it because it's only money, Nolan. In this case, $70. So it wasn't all my lineups. It was about half of them that are impacted. So let's upload that, and then let's get back here to our show. But see, this is how and I'm demonstrating this because this is something that's relatively cool, seamless, and you can, if you're set up for it, a catastrophe is solved in minutes. And of course, it doesn't let me do this because it says the player swap's not valid. So I will monkey with that just a little bit there. But in any event, back to our game tonight. And this is why you want to practice late swaptimizer before actually doing it, because bad things can happen. But anyway, for tonight, Nolan, when we talk about the games here, the defenses. I'm a fan of the Niners defense, but Russell Wilson, more mobile, not as injured as he was the last two seasons. The line a little bit better. He's not getting sacked a ton, but this defense is so good. Number one adjusted sack rate. I'm assuming three sacks, 1 to 2 turnovers. So that's about 5 events where they can score points. But I don't really see that much more because Wilson is nimble enough in the backfield, and he can make the tacklers miss him, etc. On the other side, the Seahawks, because the Niners run so much, they are among the league's lowest with turnovers and the league's lowest with sacks allowed. So I'm not really excited for the Seattle. So I have 7%, it looks like. And that would
7% defense, yeah.
Yeah, that would just be a salary savings. And I have twice that for the 49ers.
Yeah, that's fair. And our projections show that 49ers have about a 20% chance, a 15% chance of being the top 2 to 6 owned play tonight, and the 49ers are about the same. So nothing really there, no real edge the other way. And then Seahawks D, getting a little bit over-owned according to our projections. So I'm pretty much right there with you, and I think our projections are too. One thing I did notice as well is DK Metcalf not getting a lot of love in the captain spot tonight. Fair enough, but he does have the best matchup of any of these Seattle Seahawks pass catchers tonight. Ahkello Witherspoon is out for the 49ers, and that means that Emmanuel Moseley is going to be starting at the right. The right cornerback spot. DK Metcalf runs most of his routes out of the left side. DK Metcalf, 6'4", 230 pounds. Emmanuel Mosley is 5'11", and is probably the worst cornerback in Witherspoon, a lot less physical. So I feel like that's going to be one spot where there is at least some sort of positional advantage for Seattle. Of course, it's always trumped by opportunity and targets and game script over the matchup, but I do like that as maybe a small upgrade for DK Metcalf tonight that I think a lot of people probably aren't thinking about.
Yeah, and he actually ended up going into my main lineup just for some salary savings, and from that standpoint, I just think he's a better option point per dollar than some of the other guys, and it enabled me to go with both Coleman and Breida, and that's a strategy I wanted to deploy, and I wanted Russell Wilson as my captain, so I'm kind of coming at it with the main players wherever I can. Then I got the Seahawks kicker, and then I've got, I can't remember my other player. It might be Chris Carson.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I mean, this is one of those games where like 47 total, it's not super high, it's not super low, a little bit on the high side maybe. And so you're going to want to think as well about like what kind of game script and take a look at what kind of, just think about what kind of game script as you're building your lineups. I know I say this every week, but it's super important to consider as you build and take a look at some of the past winners. You can use lineup study over Osmo.com. Take a look at what some of the lineup constructions are doing and make sure that you're not doing things like not pairing your quarterbacks with wide receivers and things like that, because that's usually fairly suboptimal depending on the situation. Although we saw a couple weeks ago, Edelman was in the captain's spot in the optimal lineup with no Tom Brady. So there you go. Can happen.
Yeah, and so with regards to rules with that one, I did say 2 receivers for the Seahawks, but I only said 1 for the 49ers, just because and that includes running backs as well and tight ends. I don't see that being an exciting way for it to really get done for the 49ers through the air. I just have a hard time with that. And then with the Seahawks, they have so few people. It wasn't like I was going to start getting players that I wasn't interested in.
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, essentially you're looking at Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf getting about 90% of the snaps or getting running in most of the 2 wide receiver sets. I shouldn't say they're 90. They're probably around like 70 and 90, but I'll just pull that up real quick. And then the other guy I think might be going a little bit low owned as people try to stuff Josh Gordon in their lineups is David Moore. 40. He ran the 3rd most snaps of the wide receiver group last week. 55% offensive snap share with Jerron Brown as well. I would assume that Gordon kind of cuts into some of that, and basically Moore and Gordon will be alternating in that wide receiver 3 role. So, people are going to want to flock towards that sexier name of Josh Gordon in his first game. But with that price point and with David Moore's price point, I think he's probably one of the better bargains on the slate as well. And of course, we've seen him with the touchdown upside last year. It hasn't happened this year yet, but you never know with him. He's certainly got that game-breaking ability as well, and probably flying under the radar really because he just hasn't done that much this year.
We had a good question come in premium chat. They were asking which side of the field will oh shit, now I lost it. Sherman be covering, Richard Sherman be covering, and then will that impact any of the receivers in particular?
So Richard Sherman is predominantly never moves off the left cornerback side. So, and that means he'll probably, with Tyler Lockett running most of his routes in the slot, that means he will be going up against a lot of, I think it's Aziz Al-Shir is in tonight. I'm trying to remember who their other slot corner is. Kwan Williams, maybe. So that's another advantage. I think Lockett probably has the advantage there. And then whoever, Josh Gordon and then David Moore, both of those guys will be lining up on the other side and getting a lot of Sherman. So it's probably, Sherman's going to be taken out of this game a little bit just because of the fact that he's, not going to be facing the Seattle Seahawks best receivers. So that does give a bit of an advantage to the Seattle passing attack. And then because Richard Sherman has been, amazing this year, he's allowing, I think, a 35 passer rating or something like that. Just insane. So, I'm not from that perspective. I think you can probably downgrade those guys and then upgrade Lockett and Metcalf a little bit.
All right, I've just got one more. So the other trick for late swap is I'm going in manually, and fortunately the next games don't start till 10:30. So to give myself time here, I am just getting rid of our buddy Brandon Ingram out of for the NBA people that are watching, and I'm just putting in a lower cost guy on the late game, and then that way I'm hoping once things are a little calmer and I'm not on the show, I will be able to maneuver around and get in guys like Donovan Mitchell or Kawhi Leonard and players like that. So I'm not leaving that salary cap unused, and I'm fine with those guys in that game. It's a little disappointing to see that, but hey, better now than right after warmups or something like that. So I've just got one more one to do here, and we're going to be good. And then we'll talk about our pals over there at Super Draft. But Nolan, is there any other burning news before we talk? I see something coming. They're asking about what do you think? Do you think Breida will get double-digit touches? I think both Breida and Coleman will get double-digit touches. I suspect they'll both be in the 12 to 15 range. Seems relatively like a realistic mix. They're both okay at catching the ball. They're both good at running, in space. It then becomes who's around in the goal lines. No more Kyle Juszczyk. To steal those, Jeff Wilson Jr. is not active tonight, so we'll have to see. They don't have Kittle, so it's going to be real interesting. I would guess it would be Coleman, but we've been guessing on this before and been completely wrong. And then there was the game that Jeff Wilson came in and had 2 touchdowns. It's like who knows for sure what they're going to do. And as we've learned, rational coaching decisions don't happen when we think they ought to. And I really like, multiple people have said this, but Bill Simmons was one of the ones that has pounded it. My friends and I had said this for years, of course. Why don't you have someone that's played a boatload of Madden or Sega or one of those other video games run the 2-minute drill? Because you know what you've got to do to do I let the other team score here? Am I going to go try to do this? Am I playing for trading a field goal for a touchdown opportunity, etc.? You do that all the time because those games are designed, to have that happen, especially if you're playing with your friends and you've chosen evenly matched teams. It's like these coaches are seeing stuff for the first time. They've got 17 guys on the staff. Can't one of them just be aware of what they should do in the various situations? Because there's a lot to be paying attention to. They're like, commanding a whole space shuttle launch. You just don't have one person doing everything. Just frustrating. All right, but now that I've come back up for air here, let's see what else is. Kyle Juszczyk is back? Oh, could I be wrong? I thought he was out.
Well, yes, he's back.
Oh, my apologies. Well, that's going to gum things up even more then.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about him. I mean,
just being as another option. Not that he's going to be the guy to get it, but there's one more card in the deck.
Just
oh, you're right. He is expected to play after missing a month with the sprained MCL. Okay, thank you for pointing that one out. I missed that one.
That's a sneaky. If you really want to get creative with Juszczyk, I think it's a sneaky way to approach that would be to pair him up with Jimmy Garoppolo. He has just 1 rushing attempt this year, but he does have 8 targets and 75 yards receiving in basically 3 games. So if you want to get a little bit creative, that might be one where if he breaks one off and scores, all of a sudden, I don't think many people are going to be pairing their fullback with a quarterback. So something to think about, a wrinkle to add for your larger GPP options, though I'm not going there personally.
Yeah, the Major McGee in chat is saying, hey, Shanahan has said, maybe they'll see Juszczyk as a tight end. He's another option out there in the mix. And the 49ers are one of those teams that does like to have guys that can kind of shift into multiple positions. So Juszczyk's one of them, kind of that H-back, fullback kind of guy. Mostert is a little bit. You've got Deebo Samuels, the rookie that could play. Was considered as a little bit of a running back when everybody was dinged up, etc. So it's one more thing muddying the waters. From that one. And then a few people laughing. We play these Madden situations thousands of times. We know. And Someone's giving me props for Sega. Yeah, Sega Genesis. It's been a long time since I played video games. Once they went to double thumb trigger joystick, I need the ABC button. That was about as advanced as I could get there.
You're a Tecmo Bowl guy.
I loved Tecmo Super Bowl. It was awesome. But you know what I do love? I love Super Draft. So let's talk about Super Draft, our new sponsor of the site. I'm going to drop this link into chat, but this is the deal that they are offering for us. If you come in on this link and use the promo code AWESOMO and deposit $100, they will give you $20 immediately available for use into any of their contests. Now, they're a little bit different. So they're not just your general run-of-a-mill DFS side. Their little hook is they have the multiplier game mode, and what they do is they allow you to pick any player that you want, offering you countless lineup combinations. They've had a ton of overlay every week this NFL season, and they plan to continue to do so through the NBA. Now, this is marketing. This is to get us over there because they're aware that we're established and set in our ways. But their intent is to roll out some overlays, just kind of a, hey, come check us out. I have a better chance of winning. So again, if you make that initial deposit of $100 coming in on our link and use the promo code OSMO, they're going to give you $20 instantly. And this is their words, Nolan, but these inspire me. So it says the future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience Super Draft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to those pesky salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. There are countless lineup possibilities that let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. Superdraft offers contests for NFL, NBA, NHL, and PGA. They'll have MLB when that starts up again, so you can enjoy the best of all DFS year-round. There you go. That doesn't inspire you to go try it. I don't know what will.
Can't wait to check it out this weekend.
Absolutely. But that's superdraft.io. If you go to superdraft.com, somebody's squatting on that name. So go to superdraft.io, and if you come in on that link, again, I'll drop that in chat. Use the promo code OSMO when you make your deposit, and you will get the $20 if you deposit $100, and then you can use that $20 first. You just can't withdraw that $20. You got to play it at least. But hey, there's overlay, so why not give it a shot?
So I was studying up on these wide receiver, a little bit on the wide receiver and the captain spot things. Really curious thing this year we've seen. Not a lot of wide receiver in the captain spot correlating with their own quarterback, which I thought was totally surprising and like not something I really ever do consciously. The New England-Baltimore game had Edelman in the captain spot with no quarterback. The Miami-Pittsburgh game had Juju with no Mason Rudolph. What is the other one here? Cooper Kupp was with Goff when they won. Michael Thomas in the captain spot with no Drew. I think it was Drew. No, it would have been Teddy Bridgewater then. Odell Beckham Jr. in the captain spot with no Baker Mayfield. So there's a scenario here where you can roster a wide receiver in the captain spot without your quarterback. Just throwing it out there.
So very funny you mention that. I have not set the if my receiver is captain, pair him with this quarterback rule on the last 3 slates. Actually, maybe 4. The last 3 shows, and I don't think I did it on this Thursday when I wasn't on air. Partly the reason is there hasn't just been this dominating dominating wide receiver that you wanted in there, and you're like, hell, I better have the quarterback with him. Like if you had a Devontae Adams, we've ended up with guys like like last night it was Gallup and Cooper, and I didn't know. I was like, I could see these guys having a good game, but Prescott not. And vice versa. I could see Prescott having, a bad game and one or the other of them having a good game. So it was kind of a messy situation. But I will say, I think probably through the majority of the seasons, that was one of the rules I liked in Fantasy Cruncher. I think that might be getting a little popular, and we might see people that are doing that to split more lineups instead of being perfectly optimal. But it also has been a series of games that hasn't lined up where it's been a situation that I wanted that. Maybe if George Kittle was healthy, I probably would have said I want Garoppolo. But this game, I didn't say Lockett had to be there with Wilson because I don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson, and I didn't want him tied down to that particular situation because Lockett could get one long touchdown for 70 yards, and then Wilson might not do anything else because Seattle's going to be able to run the ball, or some weird thing like that could happen where you're like, shit, Russell Wilson was topped by 2 other Seahawks in addition to the guy that caught the touchdown, and that's not what you want for your lineup.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly.
Now, full transparency, I got my ass kicked last night doing this. I think I got 5 or 10% back. So these single game slates, this is entertainment money. You wave goodbye to it when the games start because you're probably not going to see it back. 2 slates ago, I had a 5x slate. So I've just been all over the board here. But yeah, last night
Have you been playing any of the second half slates? I almost took down the second half for last night. I think I finished 15th out of
really
20,000 or something. Yeah, I had the Minnesota D and should have. And if we needed one more thing to break, but those contests are great as well. Like that's another strategy we should probably talk about one of these times because you're going to want to. I think there's an edge to be had if you want to think about the game construction and as well think about like you know if you have access to like routes run and who's been on the field and also who's getting the ball first, who's trailing, and then you can kind of create some lineups that might give you an edge in the field just based off of game script. So. Definitely something worth looking into if you're just sitting around. Especially, it's one of those things where, like, one of our site owners, Tom J.K., he was drawn dead in the morning on Sunday, and he's like, "Well, I better put in some afternoon lineups." And then he ended up winning the big afternooner on.
Yeah, I heard he won $200,000. I didn't realize it was that.
Took home a pretty big payday, I'll tell you. So
yeah. So we get a question asking me how many of my lineups are 5 of one team and 1 of the other, and I don't really worry about that as much, but I'm looking at it, and tonight it is a ton, meaning I don't try to influence or control it. I allow it to play 5 players against the defense, just because I don't want to limit this for most possibilities. I set other groups, like all the riffraff guys. I've got them all from both teams in like the basically, if you read my article, which is the companion piece to these shows, anybody that's in that lottery ticket section, I put them all in one big group and say you can only play one of these guys no matter what, because it's the guys that are the kick returners or the 5th wide receiver or the 3rd tight end or the fullback or whatever it is, and you don't want 2 of those guys on your lineup. But I'm looking tonight, and the way it's playing out is I have a ton of 5-1 San Francisco against Seattle. And now when I say a ton, it looks like I would say maybe a 5th of my lineups are like that. I have 2 Seahawk lineups. I've got one that's got Jason Myers at captain. It's got Deebo Samuels, and then it's got Metcalf, Carson, Lockett, and Wilson. So there's your Seahawk onslaught right there going against Deebo Samuel. It's like, well, it's the cheapest guy that could go in there. I've got a couple I have more that are 4-2s than I do anything else, and it's alternating by team. But one of them that seems to be popped a little more common is where I have Chris Carson in the captain spot. It's also got Tyler Lockett, but then those lineups, I can see 3 of them on my screen right now. They all have 4 49ers. So I think what it is kind of with the 49ers pricing, it's their sort of lesser guys are a little better point per dollar than some of the Seahawks are, because they might have the opportunity to get something. But if you go look at I'm going to drop the link for my article in the chat. If you look at what we've got I put out there routes run on the season, snap counts, etc. And then I just call out some people that have had a lot or a little. The 49ers, I mean, Deebo Samuels actually leads the team outside of George Kittle. He leads the team in targets. He's a rookie. Why? This is just a mess, but they've had all their people hurt. So This is a long way of saying this is just kind of one of those mucked up games where it doesn't quite seem to be as clear as it could be. Last night was a really fun one because there were so many guys that could have been great options with Cook and with Elliott and Cooper and Gallup and then Dak. I didn't say that about Kirk Cousins, but then he had multiple touchdowns. And I would have thought Diggs would do better, but who knew that Rudolph was going to have 2 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. Just weird stuff can happen in any one of these games because we're isolating all the games from the entire season for this one moment.
Yeah.
So when you say, quarterbacks are bad in this format, no, So you're saying quarterbacks are bad in every NFL game there is? No, maybe they didn't work out on the handful that were isolated to be the primetime game, but you have to look at it from that. We're taking an incredibly thin slice of data here.
Yeah.
Shootout or defensive struggle?
I think generally you're going to want to go running backs. I mean, if that's your game script, you want to go running backs, kicker D, some sort of running backs. I have a lineup with both running backs, the 49er D, Chase, McLaughlin, and then you can bring it back with I think a couple Seahawks pass catchers, and that's sort of like the game script where the 49ers get out to a lead, and Seattle has to throw themselves back into it. I don't know. There are lots of different ways to go, but like I could see this one being a defensive struggle for sure. Like 2 division rivals. I don't know. It's I could see like this game to me it's really hard. It's a really hard one to prognosticate. But I do think the Niners have had a little bit of time off, and the Seahawks defense is allowing 10.1 yards per attempt to play accent passes over the last 5 weeks, and the 49ers are really, really good at running play action. So I would not be surprised if the 49ers didn't come out and had a pretty efficient offensive day here. That's kind of my guess, but I think there's no real one way to construct your lineup tonight that you could say this is the way that this game is going to go, right?
I think my guess is at least 45 combined running plays, and that's going to take the clock quicker than we would like for fantasy purposes, and then that's going to leave 35 40 plays maybe for passing, if that.
Yeah.
So that's my guess. And by the way, the Seahawks are going, if the 49ers come out and run the ball and come down and score, the Seahawks are going to come out and they're going to try to run the ball because that's what they want to do. They're not going to worry about it. They're going to need to get down by 2 before they're going to really start airing it out. And even then, you saw them against Tampa Bay. It wasn't like they wanted to do it; they had to because both teams kept scoring. So I mean, Russell Wilson is as efficient as hell, but both teams need this win. This is going to be important for the playoffs, the divisional game. So I think we see more conservative than we do anything else. Just that's my guess.
Somebody in chat saying Malik Turner going to break the slate tonight.
Dude, after Byron Pringle, anybody can break the slate. I decided.
Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible call at all. Though, I mean, the problem with, unless you've got some news, he only had 7 offensive snaps, and then you've added in Josh Gordon. So it's possible he maybe gets a little bit of extra run, but I think more often than not, you're better off fading those guys. But sprinkle in one. Like I think it's a fine call at no ownership. All you really need is one big player, right? So.
Yep. All right, 90-second warning by the time you guys hear this, so don't dilly-dally. You want to hit submit if you have not done that already. Seth, if you're watching still, shout out. I did manage to change my lineups. Now I got a lot of fixing to do because I've left a lot of salary cap on the table. But he's rooting there on Twitter for me. Yeah, he's rooting on Twitter for me to not be able to swap my lineups. I just wanted to call up the NFC West. So the Niners are 8-0. They're actually the last undefeated team, aren't they?
They are. Yeah.
Seattle's 7-2, so Seattle hasn't had their bye week yet. But this is very, very close one, and if Seattle can somehow sneak one away, it's going to be nip and tuck the rest of the way because there's still one more game in Seattle after this. If Seattle loses this one, not only does it make it that much harder for them to get the division because they're going to be 3 games back, but it puts a little nick in their wild card efforts in the NFC, depending on what happens with Minnesota, and then if the Panthers or Cowboys or Philly or whatever can put something together. So this is an important game. And by the way, the Rams are just 2 games behind the Seahawks, so there's a lot of moving parts here. So we're already into a very, very important game for tonight.
Good point.
And I think those lend to more conservative play calling for coaches that are ready to be conservative play callers. So. All right. That's it. There we are. We're done. Dunsky. Any Any thoughts? We got some NHL tomorrow. It's Tuesday. It should be a fair number of teams in play, right?
Yeah. We have big slate tomorrow. So 9-gamer. Yeah, I will have the line changes article. I think we have. I want to say it's either Vots or Cliffy on the power plays. So yeah, come on by and check that out as well for sure. In addition to all our normally amazing NBA and NFL content we got going on over on this YouTube channel. Don't forget to give the video a like on your way out. We greatly appreciate it when you take the time to do that. It helps us out a lot. So.
And then I'll drop in the chat one more time, but shout out there to SuperDraft, the sponsor of the show. We've got, oops, that's my article. I'll just put that one in. But shout out to them, superdraft.io. Let me put their link in the chat. If you follow in on that link and use the promo code AWESOMO when you make your deposit, you will get a $20 deposit match if you put in $100. That is available for immediate use in any contest that they have. You just can't withdraw, but that'll be the money that comes out of your account first. Transio says, what? Boo, hockey. Hey, I have my best ROI right now is hockey. It is carrying my NBA right now. So there we are. I'm just saying, we have some phenomenal projections. They've been free once or twice a week. Check them out. That in combination with Nolan's line change article, the Alex Baker, the Awesemo line grades, and Fantasy Cruncher, it's the way to go.
100%.
All right,
let's get to this game. We gotta watch this. Watch my 49ers dominate these Seahawks here.
Oh, me and Steve Largent have other things to think about besides that. With that, gamers, we're gonna get on out of here. You can follow Nolan on Twitter at Nolan_Kelly. I am at EMACDFS, and of course, it is Awesemo1_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.